Hello guys, in this video we would like to share our story of how we got into stock photography. We will also go over our mistakes and lessons that we learned along the way. We will also talk about what happens to your income when you stop uploading new content to stock photography websites. And finally, we will try to conclude where the stock photography stands as it is right now and whether it's worth getting into it today. First off, my wife and we started in stock photography back in 2015. We were fresh out of college and we were interested in traveling. And we had some savings scraped by as well as some online income going. So it wasn't a lot, but it still allowed us to travel full-time on a car over United States for an entire year. While doing that, we started thinking, what else can we do to earn and supplement more of our income? And stock photography came to our mind. The thing is, I myself enjoyed photography since I was about 12. I was toying around with a small, the automatic camera from Canon. Those small like soap looking cameras that you can take automatic photos. And I was taking anything that I was seeing and including my family. Some people pointed out, maybe I have something going on with my eye. I could see things. But to be honest with you, I wasn't really thinking of myself much. I just knew that I enjoyed taking photos tremendously, and that's all to it. Before we started traveling back in 2015, I bought my first DSLR camera with cropped sensor. It was Nikon, I think it was D5200, I don't exactly remember. But we also bought a zoom lens. I think it was 24 to 300 zoom lens. The camera had manual controls, so I was able to play around with it and learn how to take proper exposure. I also took some online free classes and they helped me a lot to further my knowledge. Fast forward to 2015 and we were traveling full-time. And there we realized maybe our crop sensor camera is not particularly good for stock photography. And maybe they're good right now, but back then they were okay. And we decided to buy our first full-frame camera, and it was Nikon D810. I mean, I'm not some die-hard fan of Nikon cameras. They do produce outstanding glass and cameras, but so do other companies like Sony and Canon. It's just I heard more often about Nikon back then. When we bought this camera, we also bought this wide-angle zoom lens by Nikon, which is 14 to 24. And later we completed this entire so-called Holy Trinity series with other zoom lenses, which were 24 to 70, 70 to 200. And these three lenses, they served as a foundation and a backbone for our stock photography business. When we were buying all this gear, we chose not to pay everything up front. I mean, you can, and usually you get some attractive cash back, especially on a credit card. But we didn't want to spend the entire money all at once. So we decided to go with a credit that was available at the time through Amazon Prime Visa card. They were providing the free interest installment loan for the entire year if you pay off everything towards the end. And so we did that. And that gave us basically a year, we stretched it out so we can, ramp up our stock photography business and maybe compensate and earn more for that period of time. And I think someone starting in stock photography, this could be a viable option of buying something on credit for, let's say, a year, like installment loan. And I must stress that this is somewhat risky, and you must be sure that you can pay off this credit in a year, because the credit fees and interest is nasty, and we try to shun away from it as much as we can. At first we focused only on stock images. Later we bought a compact full-frame Sony camera called RX1. It is a terrific camera. The current equivalent of it is RX1R Mark II. It has a 35mm f2 fixed length by Zeiss. It's not cheap at over $3,000 new, but it allowed us to take many more photos than with other bulky full-frame cameras. If you're getting into stock photos and want to buy something lightweight, I recommend RX1R Mark II. We left a link to this camera in the description. As we traveled, we were taking lots of photos of American cities and landscapes. At some point, time lapses caught my attention and we added them to our arsenal. If you're not doing time lapses for stock photography, consider them. They have been one of our best sellers big time. Because time lapses are hard to create than photos or videos, your work will stand out. It takes some time and skill to learn how to take high quality time lapses. But the rewards are well worth it. I have tutorials on time lapses that I linked below. During our first 2 years, our income wasn't growing much. We were still, ramping up our stock photos and uploading them and editing them. But after that, we started seeing progress. And by that time, in about 2-3 years, we had about 15, I think, or 20,000 photos uploaded and being licensed. And that earned us income which was enough to travel full-time on a budget. I can't tell you how much we earned exactly, but suffice it to say it was enough. And I will come back to this earnings issue shortly and will tell how much you can expect to earn from stock photography. And this is where we started taking notice of stock footage. I had under 1,000 time lapses and stock videos uploaded. We noticed that they were selling well and we're earning more on average compared to stock photos. And I think this was our main mistake. I wish we realized the potential of stock videos earlier and worked on them from the beginning. If you're not uploading stock footage, I urge you to reconsider. I mean, sure, you can survive and live off stock photos if you have a massive amount of them. But the way we see it, we think that stock videos have a much better and more promising future. They are not easy to replicate and create with AI. Second, fewer photographers do that. As I mentioned, if you're skilled at creating time lapses, you have even more tailwinds. On top of it, creating stock videos requires some more equipment, time and patience. I made a video on how to start with stock videos linked above and in the description. Coming back to our situation. Because we had D810, we could not record 4K footage. Sure, you can sell HD clips these days, but given where everything is moving, 4K is the way to go. And so we decided to buy back then Nikon D850. This is a great camera for photos, but as far as videos, it's okay. I mean, it takes only 8-bit stock videos and it has no log profile. Still, you would be amazed how many things we were able to achieve just with that. We knew the limitations of this camera and we just worked around them. So I think it may not matter whether you have the most advanced full-frame cinematic camera or not, as long as your camera has manual controls, decent image sensor and can record 4K footage, it will work fine. Recording stock footage requires decent quality, not super quality. In the description I linked some cameras that are budget-friendly and I think are good to start with. But once you build your skill and income from photography, you can always upgrade later. And here's a big benefit from doing stock photography as a business. When you were doing photography as a hobby, you had to contend with large expenses on gear, right? With photography as a business, you can write off your gear cost against your income. Depending on where you live, the savings on equipment expenses can be significant. For instance, in the US, if your income is above $90,000, you can save 22% on federal taxes alone. Add to that state taxes, which could range from 0 to over 10%. That's a lot of savings right there. Another lesson that we learned from all this is that it pays to focus. At the very beginning, we were uploading to many stock photography websites, and I think it was 9 or 10, but later we noticed that not all of them were great sellers for us. I mean, sure, it could be the reason that we had content that wasn't suitable for them. Who knows, maybe it's just that. But we noticed that it's just too much effort to get nothing or very little payoff. And so later we decided to stop uploading to these stock photography websites. Among them were Dreamstime, Deposit Photos, Big Stock, and some others. So our take is this: if you're just starting with stock photography, we really recommend focusing on just a few major stock photography platforms, and these are Adobe, Getty, Shutterstock, Pond5, and Alamy. Some of them only accept photos or videos. And later you can dip your toes and try other stock photography platforms and see if they work for you or not. And if they don't, you just can stop uploading and working with them. And I think it pays off big time if you focus big at the very beginning. We got many emails over the years from upstart stock photography platforms. They were asking us to join and upload our content there for good returns, but we largely ignored them because we don't think it was a good deal for us. And by the way, we don't use intermediaries like Blackbox or some others. We keyword, upload, and submit everything on our own. And the reason is simple: we really like to keep everything in control over our process. And if you focus on a few platforms, like 5 major platforms that I mentioned, it's not really big of a deal. But if you still prefer to use those intermediaries to help you and in exchange for a fee, I don't see anything wrong with that. Let's circle back to 2020. As we were ramping up our content numbers, COVID-19 hit, and from there things began changing fast. You probably know how Shutterstock lowered contributor payouts big time with their tiers. Next were Alamy and Pond5 on the chopping block. They also lowered payouts from 50% to 40% for non-exclusive contributors. We still continued uploading, but our income began stagnating. We had to run just to stand still. What's interesting is that the platforms, our best-selling platforms, started shifting around for us, especially over the last 3-4 years. Before, it was always Shutterstock, but now it's actually Adobe. And this is despite the fact that we have fewer assets on Adobe for sale. Adobe doesn't accept editorial stock footage or stock photos. They do accept illustrative editorial photos though. Another interesting thing happened. As our stock photography income stagnated, we decided to shift our focus to other things. And at that time, we slowed down our rate of upload for stock photos and instead focused on stock videos, since they were showing greater earnings potential. And here's what happened. Our income began slowing down even more. The reason this happened is how stock content is ranked. When people search for a stock photo or stock video, the stock platforms, they tend to show newer content at the very beginning, or at least insert some of it there. And as this happens, the old content, it starts to get pushed down and down more. And so when people see older content less often, with time it gets licensed less often and hence earn you less. Of course, if your work is unique and has little competition, then it will almost always show up at the top of the search results. But if it's something generic, the attrition is inevitable. So this puts a spotlight on a myth that stock photography is a passive income business. I wouldn't say it's not. You still need to put in work and upload thousands of photos and videos. That way you can earn income for, I don't know, maybe like 5, maybe 7 years. But if you don't upload new content, your so-called passive income will start falling. This is inevitable based on our experience. There was another interesting development. The sales from our stock footage overtook our sales from stock photos. Especially it was true on Shutterstock. And that's interesting because we have over 40,000 stock photos while we have only about 8,000 stock videos. And this again underscores the importance of stock footage, at least in our case. There is another threat to stock photography, and that is AI. People were joking about it, saying, well, it stands no chance given its cartoonish looking images. But I disagree. They got much more sophisticated and realistic with time, and they probably would cost less compared to real photos. Right now, Adobe, Getty or Shutterstock, they're paying stock photographers to license and use their stock photos or videos to train AI algorithm. But do you know what happens next after they are done with that? If buyers license AI photos more compared to real photos, photographers' income may go down. Can stock photographers do something about it? I think it's important to stand out and have photos or videos that are not easily reproducible. For instance, photos of unique places or landmarks will likely be okay. I also think that stock videos stand a chance of thriving for the foreseeable future. Still, AI companies are working to create realistic videos too. So it's possible that AI footage may replace real footage to some extent too. And finally, there is one more thing to keep in mind for a new stock photographer, and these are free stock photo and video platforms. Websites like Pexels.com and Pixabay offer content completely free of charge. Many YouTubers and bloggers use free photos and videos just fine. We are no exception either. Of course, there are limitations to these free websites. They're extremely good at giving access to content showing basic concepts, but when it comes to some specific places or maybe situations, they don't have much content on that. Again, it shows the gaps that stock photographers can fill in and stand a chance to earn income. So what's my verdict on starting stock photography today? If you're a casual shooter hoping to earn big money, I think there could be a disappointment. To make it in stock photography, you must treat it like a business. You must come up with different efficiencies and tools to, make your throughput and workflow very efficient and fast. Over the years, we came up with different hacks to speed up our workflow, and we shared some of them on our YouTube tutorials. Also, I would not rely on stock photography alone to make a living, at least at the very beginning. Based on our experience and research, you can expect to make roughly from $1 to $2 a year per single asset. So if you're making more than $2 a year on a single asset, then that means you're doing something right, and that's a terrific result. So if you have 50,000 of stock photos and videos, you can expect to make anywhere from $50,000 to $100,000 a year. Of course, these are averages. It will depend on your content too. If you have photos of roses, apples and oranges, there's not much potential there. I would say that about 20% of all our assets earn over 80% of our income. This is not a completely surprising result. Another thing that I would do differently today is do other photography jobs. One thing that comes to mind is real estate photography. Real estate photography is in great demand, especially if you're based in a big US city. I think it's a great entry point, and it will be in demand for the foreseeable future. While you're working on it, you can start building your stock photography portfolio. It is possible that property owners may agree to give you a property release on your photos. That way, you can also sell your real estate images as stock photos, maybe. Also, I would work on differentiating your work with the gear. And one thing that comes to mind is use of handheld gimbal, like for instance this one. We started using this DJI Ronin since 2018 to record smooth and professionally looking footage. I cannot tell you how much of a difference a gimbal made in our earnings. I reviewed our gimbal by DJI in another video. I left a link in the description if you would like to check it out. And finally, another thing that I would do is drone photography. To fly a drone commercially, one must have a special license called Part 107 certificate. Without it, you cannot earn money off your drone footage or images. Drone photography has many uses. For instance, you can use your drone footage or photos in real estate photo shoots, and you can charge higher prices. Or you can contact other companies like industrial or agricultural, which often need aerial surveillance, and so you can, do work for them and charge for your each project. And also, aerial photos and videos, they will also stand out in your stock photography portfolio. I got certified several years ago, and I made videos on how to get started with Part 107 exam that I link here. So that is all I have to say about it. I feel like the bar for stock photography got much higher over the last 5 years. Not only stock platforms are paying less to contributors, but also the market itself is getting very saturated, and AI and free websites don't help with that respect either. So I feel like it's much harder to make it and live off stock photography income today compared to, let's say, 2015 when we just started. And on top of it, I don't think that stock photography platforms are done with lowering contributors' payouts. We know that Getty pays one of the industry lowest 15% to stock contributors, which are non-exclusive. So I feel like there's more room for cuts in payouts. If you're still determined to get into stock photography, this is what I would do. I would treat it as a side hustle and focus on other things. These could be real estate or drone photography. And with that, I think there is a chance to make it down the road. Although I think the probability of that happening may change for worse or maybe for better. And that is it for this video, guys. I know it's a lot to process. I don't want to sound discouraging, just wanted to be realistic so you know what you're getting into with stock photography. If you enjoyed this video, give it a like and subscribe to our channel for more useful content on stock photography, travel and other tutorials. As always, thank you so much for watching and I will see you next time. All the best!